Hi there. So today I thought I would take a look at one of the problems and one of the solutions that I found in my diploma history classroom. And I've been able to use Google Forms as a formative assessment tool. So I'm going to kind of talk you through that and hope that maybe you'll find this as helpful as I have. The problem that have been dealing with is that in the two-year diploma program, there's a tremendous amount of course content to cover. And often that involves students engaging in lots of textbook reading outside of class. And then typically what I like them to do is have done their reading, have taken notes, and show up to class prepared to discuss the ideas that they've learned about and to engage with that content in terms of writing and discussion. Of course, none of that can happen if they actually haven't done the reading and if they haven't understood what they have read. So what I hope to do with my use of Google Forms is to help them understand what is important and to help them show up for class prepared. By the end of this short little video, what I hope that you will be able to do is create questions in a Google Forms quiz to be able to provide some instantaneous feedback to your students, to be able to import questions from previous quizzes to cut down on your workload and as sort of a embedded revision tool, and to create some higher level thinking questions that might help your students as well. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. So I'm going to start in my Google Drive, and I'm going to click on the New button in the top left-hand corner, and I'm going to go down and select More, and I'm going to create a new Google form. When I create that Google form, you'll see that I have a question here. I'm going to give this Google form a title. And in this case, I'm going to title it DP History Cold War. And then in the form description, I'm going to offer a brief description of what this particular Google form is going to cover. In this case, I've got it covering week 1, day 2, the big idea, and then I've got it also assigned to the particular textbook reading. And then in the file name, I'm actually going to name this just a little bit differently, just to help me find it in my Google Drive later and to organize my thoughts. And so this is week 1, day 1, because this is the first week of the unit and this is the first day's assigned reading for this particular unit. So now that I've done that, I'm going to move on and I'm going to create a question. Now, of course, I have already pre-read the reading assignment, and I know the sort of the 3 or 4 big questions that I want my students to be able to take away. So this is my first question, and I'm going to make this a simple multiple choice question. Actually, I'm going to make it a checkbox question because I want there to be more than one possible answer, and I'm going to provide them 2 possible answers. So as my students are looking at this question, they have 2 possible answers to the question: during the interwar years, the most important effects of the Russian Civil War and the Polish Civil War were. And they can choose between these 2 possible answer choices. Before I get too much farther, I've created a question and I've created a couple of answer choices. I am going to go up to the settings icon. That's the little gear in the top right-hand corner. I'm going to go into the settings of my Google form, and I'm going to go over and select quizzes. And I would like to make this a quiz. After I make this form a quiz, I'm going to release the grade to my students immediately after each submission, and I'm going to allow them to see their missed questions, the correct answers, and the point values. And I'm going to save those settings. Now you'll notice that underneath the question you see this blue text that says answer key. So what I can do now is I can embed some feedback into this question. I've asked them a question, and now I'm going to help them understand what the correct and what the incorrect answers are. If I click on answer key, you'll then see a prompt that says add answer feedback. And I'm going to click on that prompt, and you'll see that I get a pop-up menu or a pop-up box here that says incorrect answers and correct answers. Okay? For the correct answer, I am going to congratulate them. So I say correct, and I say regaining this lost territory would become a major foreign policy goal of the Soviet Union around the end of World War II. The incorrect answer response is obviously not going to congratulate them. What I'm going to do with my incorrect answer response is I'm going to point out that they were incorrect, and then I'm going to offer a little bit of a clarification or an explanation to help them understand why they missed the question. And that feedback is going to be instantaneous as soon as they take this quiz. So now I have feedback for a correct answer and an incorrect answer. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to make this question worth 1 point because it has one possible correct answer. And then I'm going to click Done. So now I have created a question, I have given feedback, and the last thing I need to do is I need to designate what the correct answer is. And I click on Answer key. I should have done that before. So I've designated here in green that this is the correct answer, that Russia lost a significant amount of territory in the Ukraine, Belarusia, and the Baltics. And I'm done. So I have created a question. You can see the green check mark here tells me that I have indicated what the correct answer is, and I have embedded some feedback for each of my students so that they know what the incorrect, or I've got incorrect and correct answer feedback. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple more questions. Now, rather than type through these, I'll show you one of the other tricks that Google Forms allows me to do, and that is to copy and import questions. Now, I've already created these questions in another form just to show you this functionality. I'm going to import questions, and I'm going to select the quiz where those questions are contained. And I am going to import the other 3 questions that I created. This first question here is the one I already had, but these other ones were created in another form, and I can also import those questions into my Google form. And so now you will see I have a total of 4 questions. Okay. The nice thing about this is if I am building up a bank of these sort of formative reading checks, I can always pull a question or two from the previous week's readings in order to sort of provide a revision tool. So in week 2, I might take a couple questions from the week 1 readings and just toss them in there to make sure that the students are revising and keeping up with their reading. For each of these questions that I've imported, notice that I have already designated correct answers. Okay, in this case, for the second question, which of the following describe the aims of the USSR for post-war Europe, I've actually provided 4 choices, and 3 of the 4 choices are correct. So these would be the 3 main aims of the Soviet Union for post-war Europe after World War II. If I click on Answer key, you can see that I've designated each one of them as the correct answer, and again, I have already embedded feedback for correct answers, and I've embedded feedback for incorrect answers so that after the student answers the question, they'll know if they got it correct, or they will know that they got it wrong. If they got it wrong, they will also know what they missed and what they need to brush up on. So those are my 4 questions, and again, each of them has embedded feedback with them. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more type of question. And this last type of question is a higher level thinking question. So I'm going to add one more question. In this case, I don't want it to be a multiple choice. I actually want this to be a paragraph answer. And if you were able to read my questions, what I have basically asked them is, what were the aims of the Soviet Union for post-war Europe? What were the aims for the United States for the post-war period? And what were the aims of Great Britain for the post-war period? So the higher level thinking question that I would like them to answer and be prepared to talk about in class is to compare and contrast the post-war aims of the USSR, the USA, and Great Britain. And rather than have this as a multiple choice question, I'm going to have this as a paragraph response so that they have a chance to engage with that. It's not such a simple answer. And I'm going to require that question. Okay, so I click on the tab here that says required. They cannot complete this unless they answer that question correctly. I'm going to make sure that that question on my Google quiz is the last one. And so there's my open response question at the end. And then I'm going to click on the send icon, and I'm going to get the shareable link for that document, and I'm going to send that to my students on Google Classroom so that they can go in and answer the questions that they need to answer for that week's assigned reading. And that is how you create a Google form. Next time what we'll do is we'll take a look at the feedback that the student responses, and we'll talk about how you can analyze the feedback that's generated from the students.